Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, described the decision as an attempt to blackmail the government. He says the strike is unjustifiable, and he blamed the Labour leader, the NLC President Joe Ajaero, for the assault on him. On day one of the strike, there was partial compliance in parts of the country. Organized Labour commenced the indefinite strike nationwide over the alleged ill treatment meted on the NLC President, Mr. Ajaero, in Imo State. TVC News' Joke Adisa has more.
It's the first day of the NLC TUC strike, and activities at the bustling Federal Secretariat in the nation's capital are still business as usual. Workers and visitors are seen going in and out of the Secretariat. It's different strokes for different folks, as some of the workers describe the strike as selfish, while others queue behind organized labor.
Yeah, I think that one is political. You know, anything that happens at the political scene, you cannot generalize it to the national issue. I think maybe that's why people don't take them serious. They should stop politicizing everything.
They are fighting for it for our own good. They should sit at home and pending when the issue will be ratified.
Your fellow comrades beat you for Imo. You are not taking it personal on the nation. You want to cripple the economy. The economy they are trying to revive.
There's an order of court. So I call on the Labour leaders to obey the order of the court.
Already, the federal government insists the strike is against national interest. The special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, says the NLC and TUC decided to punish a whole country of over 200 million people over a personal matter involving the NLC President, Joe Ajaero. While the nationwide strike declared by the NLC and TUC seems not that very effective at the Federal Secretariats, here at the National Assembly, it is a complete shutdown. The Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria disagrees with the government as it shuts all gates to the National Assembly, preventing workers and visitors from accessing the complex in compliance with Organized Labor's directive.
Somebody was brutally beaten, eyes swollen, almost a dislocated shoulder and neck, and somebody somewhere is saying that he is not aware of it. It happened in your state. He was weeks away by the police and talks. We demand an apology.
We are not allowed entrance for the reason that Labour is on strike. And
the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have now declared an indefinite strike and feigned ignorance of an order by the court, stopping them from demonstrating to register their displeasure over the assault on Joe Ajaero, President of the NLC. The days ahead will indeed show how more effective this strike will be. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
And joining us now to discuss this controversy is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun. We also have public affairs analyst Daniel Akilami with us. Gentlemen, Mr. Ologun, Mr. Akilami.
Good morning.
You're welcome. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you.
And I want to begin with you, Mr. Ologun, especially, you know, here we are again. It's a terrain that, you know, I'm sure you both are familiar with. But, you know, this appears to be quite peculiar. And, you know, that's where I want to you to touch on in your first series of analysis. So what do you make of this? You know, NLC, this organized labor strike, it's primarily based on, you know, the ill treatment, which many have condemned. But, you know, it's a national issue. It's not a national issue. What do you think?
You know, let me start by saying that under the labor law, a strike is an instrument, particularly when there is failure of implementing collective bargaining. But then there are procedures that must be followed. And again, if you look at the decision that came out of the National Industrial Court, there is also the issue of no work, no pay, which is also supported by law. Like the government can use to say, okay, we want to control. But let me say that the issue of low wages responding to the welfare of workers is nothing new in Nigeria. I did the research. The first industrial action, it was even before the amalgamation, as far back as 1879. We had one in 1912. But the prominent one in Nigeria was that of 1945, led by Michael Modu. And workers were demanding for increase in minimum wage and some welfare benefits, which the government was not willing to. In fact, the government responded with a little addition. But that strike was extremely successful. Even some nationalists had to join. The citizens were almost offering some goods to the strikers, either free or almost free. And those were the glorious days of, unionism in Nigeria, fighting the cause of workers and by extension, the cause of the citizens. But in this most recent one, and like you raised, other elements are coming in, like the battering of the NLC leader in Imo State. And I believe that this is a new concept entirely, because the main purpose of having the labor movement is to protect the interest of the workers. Fine. Institutionally speaking, he is the leader of NLC, but there are better alternatives in engaging that scenario. And again, there's what you call timing in strategy. He's going to Imo State. It was at a time when it was a volatile season. The election was coming. Ajaero himself is perceived to be a strong member of Labour Party. And so these issues came up. I will not in any way support the molestation that was rolled out against him, but that could have been addressed by going to court to sue for battery or whatever the lawyer decides. We fly over there and focus mainly. I don't think it should be tied to the general demand for upscaling workers' welfare in Nigeria and by extension, bringing down the hardship on the people. And that is where it may appear that NLC may be losing steam gradually, particularly when you now place that on the platform of several threats that have been rolled out and called off. NLC used to be a strong force in the nation. But by and large, like I said, the right to strike is legitimate, but it must follow proper procedures. And the government also must be seen to respond. That is why I took the pain to go back to history. That government has not been, reckoned to respond sufficiently to the demands of the labor union. And if you look at the International Labour Organization's recommendations, there should be fairness in that relationship, there should be responsiveness and other elements. But here we are right now. We are still battling to ensure social harmony in the nation. And who are the victims? Citizens, the economy, the processes of business. So let me.
And the strike is still in place. Labour has, spoken out on the issue. The federal government, slammed Labour essentially for embarking on this strike at a time like this. Of course, considering the impact it would have on the people. And we have a reaction from a former NLC president in the person of Adams Oshiomhole, who has also slammed the strike, the rationale behind it, saying it's a matter of misplaced priority. What do you think, Mr. Akinlami?
Well, I think there are two sides to the unfolding events. There is the side of those who support the federal government that this action should be state action, should be addressed at the state level, that is at the Imo State level. And there are those who are on the side of the workers. I know that what the NLC and TUC is trying to prevent now is a precedent. This has never happened before. And the manner of which their leaders were brutalized in Imo State, even according to their own side of the story, because we didn't really see much of the footage or video or what went down. But according to their own side of the story, Joe Ajaero was in the state office of the NLC to address the media. And while they were about that, some of the police officers attached to the place to protect the place were withdrawn. And then some talks came in, manhandled him, and it led to this brutalization. But one thing that we need to also understand in the midst of this is that the labor union is a pressure group, like Barrister Ologun said. Their main interest is to promote and defend workers. Now, their leadership is at the center of this fracas. So, and they are trying to make a statement that this will not become a precedent. That tomorrow they will go to Ogun State, they will lynch them. And next tomorrow they will go to Edo State, they will deal with them like this. So, and if we can really look at the intentions behind this, and even before this Imo State issue, let's cast our mind back to few weeks ago where we were with the labor union when they called off their threatened strike in the first week of October. And you know, they've been having a running battle with the federal government in the past 3-4 months since this administration came in over the removal of the fuel subsidy and the palliatives to help the workers. So that's where we were before things got complicated in Imo State. So as it is now, I believe the resolution that should be coming in has to first come with the end of the federal government, calling them to the round table. And if we look at some of their demands for this action now, they want some of those people involved in the fracas to be prosecuted. The former commissioner of police has been redeployed to be prosecuted. And then the essay to the governor on special duties to be arrested and prosecuted, and they listed a number of people to be arrested and prosecuted that they fingered were involved in the brutalization. But if we look at things objectively, without taking side, for the good of all the activities that have been grounded since yesterday and how normalcy can be restored, I think the federal government needs to get them to the round table and let there be discussion about some of these issues. So, because this strike should not even enter the second, they not talk of the third day. People already affected, people who are supposed to go about their businesses, who don't fly at the airports, and many things have been affected. And see the affiliates that were joining, also has joined. And the interesting part in this whole thing, Barrister Ologun, is the fact that despite the restraining order, Judicial Staff Union of Nigeria too joined. So you just imagine how the thing is going. So I believe the federal government needs to meet with them and then take some actions in respect of some individuals that have been identified. Let there be investigation and a quick one to the incident. Those who are found guilty should be prosecuted so that this whole action can be called off.
So many issues, you know, from my takeaways from you both. And, well, let's also bring it now to the issue of the courts. First of all, where do you stand, Mr. Ologun? It was an ex parte application by the federal government, which means that the labor side wasn't in court to obviously ask for the court to dismiss the application of the federal government. So it was gotten without their buy-in, and so now there is. And now there's an issue of whether that order binds the strike or nullifies the strike that the labor side eventually embarked on. What do you think?
Obviously, disrespect to the rule of law is frowned upon.
Whether it's ex parte or...
Exactly, in decent societies.
Right.
And the big question is that the one who is alleging disrespect of court order, to what extent have they respected court orders? So, and that is why I always focus on sustainability. And that is why also I went back to 1945. If you go and look at the industrial action of 1912, thereabouts, it was against low wages, color discrimination. There are fundamental issues that must be attended to. For how long do we continue with unfulfilled promises? When you talk of collective bargaining, we have all come to the table to say, okay, these are our needs. Please pay attention to our needs. And the other party that is supposed to pay attention is living in affluence. So we have fundamental crisis in Nigeria. Okay, we are talking about the removal of fuel subsidy, the need for palliatives to increase minimum wage. The minimum wage itself is on the exclusive legislative list in the country. That is a fundamental issue for the National Assembly to look into. So states will tell you, okay, when you finish your own promises at the center, we have to negotiate our own at the state level. But then, the officials who are expected to even attend to these needs are living in affluence. We've read about the SUVs and all these things. So it will further infuriate and dislodge the harmony in this relationship. And that is what is playing out. Now, economic activities are being disrupted. Who are the affected ones? The generality of the citizenry. When you talk about 150 million citizens of Nigeria within the multifaceted poverty bracket, they are not the leaders. I doubt if a senator is within that bracket, or a member of House of Representatives, or a federal minister, or a governor, or a commissioner. So these are issues. So how do we strike a balance? When you look at nations where industrial harmony exists, you will see this balance. And that is when you can even proceed on the course of prosperity. And let me say this. If these issues are not well attended to, whether it's the disrespect to the rule of law and all things like that, it may eventually affect even the leadership of this country. Recall the case of NSAS protest. There were demands that built up to that violent ventilation. And I have also identified an issue in the country that may not have a lasting effectiveness. During the NSAS crisis, the government came out to say the government has a responsibility to keep the country safe. We agree. And suddenly, violent elements were introduced for intervention. Right. The same thing with Ajaero in Imo. The government is claiming thugs came in, that they went to rescue him. We must be sincere in how we manage relationships between the governed and the government in this country.
There's also the issue of the justification of the federal government, or even the intervention of the federal government in a matter as this. And of course, you could say for the side of for the federal government that it's a nationwide strike, hence their intervention. But looking at the unresolved issues between the federal government and organized labor, especially since the inception of the Tinubu administration, I wonder what you make of this kind of intervention by the federal government. Does it appear to you that it will compound further relations between them? And we are seeing something like that in the latest statement by organized labor, saying that they kind of did the Tinubu administration a favor, you know, by suspending their strike, and now see what the federal government is saying about them, telling them that they are embarking on a needless strike.
Well, I think if truth is to be told, industrial court intervention may not resolve this crisis. And we have been there many times. This is not the first time. This restraining order issued by the National Industrial Court on Friday is not the first. In the past 5 months, federal government has gone to this court to get order like 4 or 5 times. And even the last one in August, the Attorney General went again, you know, to withdraw the suit of contempt of court order. Right. They gave against labor, you know, for not obeying the previous court order. Right. So it's been up and down. And like Barrister Logun said, the federal government too is guilty on one side for having selective compliance with court orders. We are in this country, we've seen it several times, in several cases. Many do we mention? Is it the Nandikanu's case or the Shiite leaders case? So many. So the issues on ground may not really be resolved by industrial court intervention. These guys need to take some concrete steps to show commitment. And actually, this is not even the major labor issue that we have at hand. The major labor issue we have at hand is the strike that was suspended in the first week of October, the midnight of the commencement of that indefinite strike, where the federal government rolled out some palliative idea to give workers 35,000 monthly for 6-month period, and then to pay 75,000 to 15 million household. That would be for like 3-month period. Now, nobody is talking about the compliance to those agreements. Have they started paying? Have the household started receiving money? And the suspension of that particular strike was subject to the performance of federal government on those promises. That is where we were. That's what the issue, the main issue is. Unfortunately, this Imo State thing just, threw the spanner into the whole progress that was going on. And like Barrister said too, the environment was volatile. So I believe there was a wrong judgment on the part of labor union stepping in. They could have waited till after election to start that mobilization for those workers. Actually, they said about 10,000 workers that have been cut off from payroll, that the state government claimed they were ghost workers. And then there was issue of 31 month no pay. So those issues were valid. And what they were set up for, and this is not the first time, labor leaders have been going to states to back up agitation of workers in different states. This is not the first time. But I believe there was a wrong judgment, on the part of the leadership. Is it not just about 2 weeks ago? They would have waited for the election to pass to truly face this workers' demand in Imo State. But having said that, I think where we are right now, to really place any verdict on what the implications of this court order that the labor people have defied is really difficult. They claim that they are not aware right now of the court order. Definitely, the judge gave an explicit order that it should be pasted on their offices, the known offices and national dailies. So which everybody knows that there is a restraining order. So, but they are claiming ignorance as it is right now. But I believe federal government should take some concrete action about those actors, those who participated in the brutalization. Let government do something. After all, government is the custodian of the institution to uphold law, rule of law. So it should not be difficult that those people they've mentioned, they should identify them. There should be investigation, and a quick one, so that those people who are involved in beating the labor leaders and those leaders of the party, even though some of them may be members of APC, there's some talks have been identified. Those people should be invited, arrested, or prosecuted so that we can have progress.
And Labour has said that for the police to say it will investigate is also a misnomer, because you cannot be a judge in your own case. And so amidst the calls that you both have made for investigation, for prosecution of what happened to Comrade Ajaero, so who does it? On whose desk will this onerous duty lie on? And will we indeed get to see the end of this? Will we get to see the names? Will we get to see prosecution and punishment of those behind these attacks?
Talking about investigation, there are private investigators that can do a clean job. But I don't even think it's more of investigation. Some of the players have been identified. It is the political will to go ahead and do the needful. Diligent prosecution, committed judiciary. And let me say this, we need a coin in Nigeria, which is sincerity of purpose. This government came out because government is in continuum, that about 400 sponsors of terrorism have been identified in Nigeria. So that means they did their investigation. And today, I've not read of any sponsor of terrorism that has been prosecuted or convicted, even though when Dubai that is not the direct victim of terrorism that is being referenced, Boko Haram and the Islamic State of West Africa, prosecuted and jailed about 6 sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria. So I think we just need to set up a time to wake up. As a nation, as we discuss the case of NLC, the oil thieves issues are still there. Are we now saying we don't know them? In fact, a governor came out to say they were in communication with bandits. You know, Sheikh went in there to take photographs with them. So I think we need to wake up. And my concern really is that from the trends we are monitoring, the government is no more secured than the governed. Because I pray we don't have a major crisis in the nation, because whether you talk about the abuse of the rule of law or the injustice meted out to workers or the inflation in the land, it's moving us towards crisis.
A particular analysis, indicates that so far, since the inception of this administration, about 4 national as well as warning strikes have been embarked upon in a space of 9 months or thereabout. Okay, that was before. That will include before the inauguration of President Tinubu's government, so to speak. But when you even look at the level of compliance with this latest strike, I wonder what you make of it, in line with Mr. Ologun's argument about organized labor needing to also re-engineer themselves. And we are seeing more and more knocks for the rationale of organized labor when it acts. Gone are the days when everybody cheers and urges organized labor on. But even within its ranks now, they don't seem to be in order. In Imo State, for example, now we saw how the governor thanked organized labor in the state, saying that they were on his side, all was going well. In Lagos, for example, there was little or no compliance with the strike, as well as other states. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, yes, definitely there are knocks and criticism everywhere against this action. And the fact that many people believe that this should be domiciled in Imo State, not to become a national issue. But something else that we need to pay attention to is the fact that the first day of this kind of action may not necessarily determine how it will end or the direction it will go. Sometimes some of these industrial actions start slowly, so that's why we need to be very careful. And now look at the manner and the heavyweight affiliates. They were releasing statements yesterday and joining, not only HASU, the Union for the Bankers, Hotel and Beverage, all of them.
You understand that electricity workers are also
yes, and we should also not forget that union affair is about comradeship and solidarity. So apart from what is going on in the street, because the people are the one affected, people will criticize. They will knock labor. Those who want to travel could not travel. Those who want to access financial services could not access them. It's expected. But what we should pay attention to is the momentum. Federal government needs to prevent the momentum. I personally do not want to postulate that it could spill to the street, because there's no evidence for that right now. But with the hardship on the streets, with the inflation, with what people are passing through, so federal government should not allow this to grow to that extent that it will mobilize people who are already angry due to the fuel subsidy removal. So they should do this politically. Talk to these guys, get them on the round table. This is not difficult. This is even one of the least issues that federal government can resolve. The demands are straightforward. Some people's names have been mentioned. CSO to the Imo State Government House, SA on special duty to the governor, the former commissioner of police. Some individuals have been mentioned. Let there be thorough investigation, a free and fair one, that all parties will be represented. Neutral people, like I said, neutral people can be put there to take charge of that panel. And let everybody see, let all the people mentioned be interrogated. And those who are guilty should be prosecuted accordingly. It's not difficult. So even if there is no willpower before now to address some of these issues because there are party leaders involved and they have to protect those party leaders. But what is ahead of what is building up is more dangerous than the party leaders you are trying to protect. So as we are right now, I will advise the federal government and the Labor Ministry and the stakeholders to really think very well about the consequences of this action running to 3-4 days. Yes.
All right. Mr. Logo, what do you think of it? You know, the federal government has spoken, but of course it does not foreclose, you know, more interventions from their end. And I reckon positive interventions because so far the statement by the federal government through the president's aide doesn't appear, well, as from the face level of it, doesn't appear to be some form of, you know, a way of dousing tensions. And we've seen the back and forth so far. But what would you be subscribing for while you speak about the issue of political will, you speak about federal government intervention? But on this controversy, he has expressed concerns about escalation and how it will spill on everybody else. Aesop,
a wise man, said, after much is said and done, more is said than done. Let's begin to, if we have what we have agreed upon to do, action helps. Get it done. And if you don't have the capacity, don't promise it. That's one thing I have said. The total indebtedness of Nigeria now is around 80-something trillion naira. In fact, one of the headline prints today is the president saying he inherited a huge burden. Right. So, but my advice is that we can all go through this if we connect and we are on the same page. It's not that we claim that there is hardship in the land and you open your window and see affluence in the same land. So how can we draw the balance? People have been talking about cost of government and things like that. And in the case of NLC, it's quite interesting on the scale of perception that NLC is now perceived to be running a political party. You see, so, and that may weaken the trust the people have for that being a pressure group to bring goodness to the people. Oshomole, who was also a prominent NLC leader and did very well, has ended up in the political arena. He is now the one appealing to them to calm down. But I will also advise him to talk to his colleagues on that side. He's been on this side. That please, how can we help this country move forward? What we are discussing is beyond NLC, is beyond the government. The people, there is hardship in this land. You see, so begin to implement what we bring us back to the platform of harmony. The Chinese have a maxim that the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. And in engaging our resources, let us prioritize what is important to attend to now. How can we revive the economy? How can we create more employment? How can we have workers who will support the process? And I can recommend Singapore. You know, Singapore struck a balance between the public sector and the private sector to create a wealth hub that is attracting foreign direct investments into that nation. And Singapore left Malaysia in 1965. Today, it's one of the best countries to live and to work in the world. So what have they done? If not, whether we are talking of, and I say this respectfully, whether we are talking of Ajaero or a minister of state that they are shouting at each other, they are in the elite class. They are comfortable. You know, Ajaero could be flown to Germany for treatment and things like that. But please, look down from your helicopter and look at the citizens. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, Daniel Akilame and Jide Ologun, thank you very much for your contributions on the program today. And thank you for all